Robert Downey Jr. is the MCU. His presence was the beating heart of the Infinity Saga. His exit in Endgame felt like the closing of an era. So when Marvel brings him back, it's not just plot, it's psychological warfare on the audience. You want to trust him. You want to cheer. But instead of redemption, you get deception. That's what makes this story hit so hard. It's not just about Doctor Doom rising, it's about legacy being hijacked. And nobody plays with legacy like Marvel does when they're operating at peak creativity. Now let's talk mechanics. The idea that Doom stole the consciousness of a multiversal Tony Stark isn't just intriguing, it's consistent with what we've seen Marvel already do. Remember, what if? Where consciousness was moved between universes, where Ultron achieved omnipotence through the Infinity Stones, where Strange Supreme literally devoured versions of himself to grow stronger. These aren't one-off experiments, they're blueprints. And when you consider that Victor Von Doom is arguably the most intelligent and dangerous man in the multiverse, it tracks completely that he wouldn't just build a multiversal empire, he would inhabit it. This also ties into that comic arc, infamous Iron Man, where Doom takes on the mantle of Iron Man after Tony's apparent death. But he doesn't just wear the suit, he tries to redeem himself. He tries to become a hero. The parallels here are terrifying, because in Doom's mind, he isn't a villain. He believes he's the only one who can save reality. He's not just playing Iron Man, he believes he's better than Iron Man. And if he has the power, the face, the legacy, then who's gonna stop him? And that's the scariest part, because RDJ doesn't need to be evil to play Doom. He just needs to believe he's right. That moral gray zone? That's where RDJ thrives. And when you stack that against what we're hearing about Avengers Doomsday, it all adds up. The multiverse is collapsing. Battleworld is forming. The TVA is in chaos. Loki is trapped in the void. Kang is fractured across timelines. The Avengers are splintered. And into that chaos steps a man who looks like the one they all used to follow. A man who speaks like Stark, strategizes like Stark, but acts like Doom. That's a mind bomb waiting to go off. The team's unity is already shaky. This will shatter it. And think about this. What better time for Doom to rise than now, when Kang, the original multiversal threat, is stumbling? Doom isn't just another big bad. He's opportunistic. He sees the holes in the system, the fractures in trust, and he slips in wearing a face everyone misses. That's how you conquer worlds, not with weapons, but with illusion. And let's not forget, Doom's ultimate goal is godhood. It's never been about ruling Latveria. It's always been about reshaping reality itself. And with Franklin Richards' powers, with Wanda's chaos magic, and with Tony Stark's legacy as a Trojan horse, Doom finally has the keys to rewrite the multiverse in his image. And this explains why Doom doesn't need to fight anyone head-on. He lets the Avengers and X-Men tear each other apart. He lets Monica get framed. He lets Spider-Man hesitate. He lets the TVA implode. Because while everyone is scrambling to decode the chaos, Doom is writing the next chapter. Quietly, methodically, wearing a face that disarms everyone in the room. This also reframes that moment from the Fantastic Four post-credits scene. Franklin Richards touches Doom's face, not in fear, but in recognition. And that's important, because Franklin is a cosmic-level being. He doesn't see just the surface. He sees energy, essence. And when he hesitates, it's because he feels something familiar. That's not Doom to him. That's someone else. Someone he's maybe dreamed of or met in another timeline. Maybe that's how he sees through the illusion. But by the time he realizes the truth, it's already too late. That's why the score matters. Doom? ? It's not confirmation. It's doubt. Because even in universe, nobody's sure what they're dealing with. Not Wanda, not Franklin, not the TVA, not even Strange. That's the twist. The villain isn't Doom or Stark. It's the loss of identity. The collapse of narrative. The rewriting of who's who in a world where faces lie and memories fail. And RDJ is the only one who can pull that off convincingly. Because his return doesn't feel like a villain arc, it feels like a comeback. That's the bait. Marvel knows that if they put that man on screen, fans will cheer, theaters will erupt, and everyone will emotionally invest before the reveal. Then they'll twist the knife. And that moment, that feeling of betrayal, isn't just a plot twist. It's the emotional core of Avengers Doomsday. Let's talk symbolism. Tony Stark began the MCU. He was the godfather of it all. What better way to mark the death of the multiverse than to pervert that origin? What better villain for the final saga than the literal ghost of the man who started it? And not just his ghost, his image, used as a mask by the most manipulative figure in Marvel history. That's the level of meta storytelling we're talking about here. Not just a twist, a statement. When you consider RDJ's cryptic social media posts, like the one with the quote, "new mask, same task," it's not random. It's code. It's narrative seed planting. Because if Doom is truly wearing Stark's face, metaphorically or literally, that 5-word sentence is the plot. He's not changing the mission. He's changing the face. And with that face, he gains access to everything. Stark's tech, Stark's alliances, Stark's legacy. He doesn't need armies, he needs belief. And this makes every rumor, every leak, every casting choice fall into place. RDJ isn't Doom. Doom is RDJ, which is not the same thing. It's a performance within a performance. A mask within a mask. A story about how power isn't just taken, it's inherited, stolen, impersonated. And in a multiverse, identity is the most unstable element of all. This answers another lingering question. Why would the Russo brothers say RDJ was the only one who could play this Doom? It's not because he's the best actor in the world, though he's great. It's because the story only works with him. This Doom requires emotional baggage. It requires audience trust. It requires nostalgia, charisma, and the weight of a decade of storytelling behind it. If Doom looked like anyone else, it wouldn't hit. But if Doom looks like Tony Stark, suddenly, everyone is vulnerable. That's how you shake a universe. Remember what Kevin Feige said recently. The multiverse saga is about choices, identity, and consequence. That's what this is. Doom choosing to become Stark. Identity being twisted into weaponry. Consequence unraveling everything that came before. It's not a twist for shock. It's a character study. And in that way, it's the darkest story Marvel has ever told. Because it's not about heroes versus villains. It's about the death of identity in a world where anyone can be anyone. That's why Robert Downey Jr. is not Doctor Doom. Not really. He's a version, a front, a perfect illusion. Doom is behind the curtain, inside the shell, pulling the strings. Stark is the skin he wears to get inside your head. Now let's talk about what this means for the multiverse as a whole. If Doom has indeed stolen the body of a Tony Stark variant, then we're looking at a villain who isn't just using science or sorcery, he's wielding legacy like a weapon. He's using trust as his superpower. In a world where every variant, every alternate version brings a new set of rules, Doom has chosen to play the most dangerous game of all, not to conquer, but to replace. Not to appear as himself, but to appear as the person everyone wishes had never left. Tony Stark is the key to this entire multiverse narrative because he's the emotional core of every Avenger that came after him. And that's what Doom is stealing. Not just his face, not just his tech, but his meaning. This idea actually connects directly to Loki and the Citadel at the end of time. Think about it, the TVA was designed to prune variants, to preserve a sacred timeline. And what happened when He Who Remains lost control? The branches exploded. Timelines shattered. Now imagine what happens when Doom enters that system. He doesn't prune. He doesn't protect the sacred. He manipulates it. And not just from the outside like Kang. No, Doom's play is to go internal. He infiltrates by becoming the symbol of the sacred timeline itself, Stark. That's the infiltration of the century. And don't forget Loki's connection to this. He's sitting alone at the center of the timeline, watching it all unfold. And who do you think he's going to trust more? A multiversal council of broken heroes, or a familiar face who tells him he understands the burden of protecting reality? That's the horror. Because even Loki, who's been down the road of deception, might hesitate when he sees RDJ's face. Doom doesn't have to fight for control. He just has to suggest that maybe he's already won. This is why the misdirection is so powerful. Fans think RDJ returning means hope, a second chance, a moment of redemption for the MCU. But Marvel's greatest trick isn't just bringing him back, it's redefining him. This isn't Tony Stark. This is the corruption of Tony Stark. It's Tony's face becoming the symbol of tyranny. And when that illusion finally shatters on screen, when the mask slips just a little, the emotional impact is going to be devastating. For the audience, for the characters, for everything the Avengers thought they knew. Now let's swing back to Franklin Richards. Why him? Why now? Franklin is arguably the most important character in this phase of the MCU, and nobody's really grasping how critical his role is. Because Franklin isn't just powerful. He's young. He's malleable. And Doom knows that. Just like how Wanda manipulated the twins in WandaVision, just like how Thanos manipulated Gamora and Nebula through trauma, Doom is using Franklin's vulnerability to his advantage. But not to raise him, not to train him, to extract from him. Franklin is the source, the battery. The spark of chaos Doom needs to build Battleworld. And let's be clear, Battleworld isn't a battleground. It's Doom's dream. It's a Frankenstein patchwork of broken universes stitched together by stolen power. And what does Doom need to stitch reality? Franklin's Omega-level potential and Wanda's chaos magic. That's not a war strategy, that's a cosmic recipe. A new universe built in Doom's image, with himself as God at the center. And where is the Avengers during all this? Chasing ghosts, fighting each other, believing that maybe, just maybe, Tony came back to save them. Meanwhile, Doom is behind it all, orchestrating their downfall using the ultimate camouflage. That's not just evil, that's artistic. Now let's talk about Wanda. Because her resurrection is not just a side quest. It's a cornerstone of Doom's plan. We've heard the rumors. She's alive, but her memory is gone. Why does that matter? Because memory is identity. And identity in this multiverse is everything. Doom doesn't want Wanda back because he needs a witch. He wants her back because he needs instability. Wanda's chaos magic doesn't just bend reality. It rejects reality. And that makes her the only being powerful enough to fuse shattered multiverses without destroying herself in the process. So Doom finds her, broken, amnesiac, and he becomes her savior. Not with threats, with kindness, with promises, with the voice of Tony Stark. And that's how he controls her. Because in a universe of lies, sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is offer someone hope. And this is where Spider-Man comes in. Because Spider-Man, more than any other character, feels the loss of Tony the most. He looked up to him. He built his identity around being the next Iron Man. And now, when he sees that face again, how do you think he'll react? He won't punch first. He won't run. He'll freeze. He'll ask questions. He'll hope. And that hesitation gives Doom everything he needs. Because even though Peter has grown, he still wants Tony back. And Doom knows that. And uses it. But that's not all. Because we know Spider-Man, Brand New Day ends with a post-credit scene where Doom appears. Not in armor, not in shadows, but in full view. As Tony Stark. And that's when everything snaps. Because up to that point, Peter's arc has been about rebuilding, finding his own way. And just when he's almost there, just when he's finally moved on, bam, here comes the lie, the illusion, the trap. From that moment on, the multiverse isn't just breaking, it's being remade. Because Doom doesn't just want to rule a broken world. He wants to build a perfect one. One where he's the hero. One where the face of Tony Stark is synonymous with salvation, not sacrifice. And we're not done yet. Let's revisit that West Coast Avengers comic RDJ posted, issue number 35. A child brainwashed into thinking he's Doom. That's Kristoff. But it's more than just a deep comic cut. It's the template. Because Kristoff represents the fragility of identity. The idea that if you're told long enough that you are someone, even if you're not, you become them. And isn't that exactly what Doom is doing? He's not just stealing Tony's body. He's becoming him. Slowly, carefully, completely. Which makes the final confrontation all the more terrifying. Because the moment Doom fully believes he is Stark, that's when he's most dangerous. Because now he's no longer pretending. He's convinced. And when a man like Doom is convinced he's the savior, that's when he becomes the destroyer. Now remember the empty Latvierian seat at the UN. It wasn't a scheduling conflict. It was symbolic. Doom didn't show up because Doom is no longer tied to a single nation. He has moved beyond borders, beyond identity. He has become post-political. His war isn't for land, it's for reality itself. That empty seat isn't just a missing representative, it's a message. I don't answer to anyone anymore. And this brings us back to the idea that Doom doesn't have scars in this version. Why? Because the scars were always a metaphor. They represented the pain, the obsession, the pride. But now, he doesn't need them. The face he wears is flawless. It's beautiful. It's Tony Stark. And that perfection is part of the lie. The unscarred mask is what makes people trust him. It's what makes people follow. The scars are internal now, hidden, and that makes them more dangerous. So what happens when the mask comes off? When the Avengers realize too late that the man they trusted is the one who broke them apart? That's your doomsday moment. The multiverse doesn't collapse because of a weapon. It collapses because trust itself dies. The lie becomes too deep, the damage irreversible. That's why Robert Downey Jr. is not Doctor Doom. Because Doctor Doom isn't a man anymore. He's an idea, a lie, a virus that spreads through timelines by taking the shape of hope, of leadership, of Tony Stark. This isn't about returning to the status quo. It's about burning it down. It's about making the audience question everything they believe about the MCU. If RDJ can come back and play the villain, not by shouting, not by destroying cities, but by quietly stealing the soul of the MCU itself, then Marvel has done something incredible. They've turned nostalgia into horror, heroism into betrayal, and identity into warfare. So don't cheer when you see his face. Don't smile when you hear his voice. Ask yourself, who is he really? Because if you wait too long to figure it out, it might already be too late. Doom isn't coming. He's already here. And he's wearing the one face the universe can't say no to. And if you think that's where it ends, it doesn't. Because the way Marvel is structuring Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, and everything that spins out of it isn't just about good versus evil or heroes versus villains. It's about what happens when you lose the ability to tell the difference. And that's what Doom, using Tony Stark's face, does better than any threat we've seen in the MCU. Thanos wanted balance. Kang wants control. But Doom? Doom wants belief. He wants you to believe that he's the only way forward. And he wants that belief to come from the most manipulative place imaginable, grief. Because that's what Tony's death created, a void. An emotional black hole that every remaining hero still feels. It fractured Peter Parker. It pushed Rhodey into silence. It forced Strange into compromise. It broke Pepper's heart, left Morgan fatherless, and made the whole world question if any of it was worth it. So now when that face returns, when that voice says, "I'm here, I never really left," what happens? Some fall for it. Some resist. Some turn on each other. And that chaos is exactly what Doom thrives in. Doom's not stupid. He knows he can't defeat the Avengers by force, but he can defeat them by doubt. Because once you don't know who to trust, every move becomes compromised. Every plan becomes guesswork. That's the real Doomsday. Not a planet exploding, a trust collapse so complete that the greatest team in the multiverse can no longer function. And who causes it? A man wearing a familiar face and speaking familiar words, "I am Iron Man." That's what makes this storyline so powerful. Because it's not just a plot twist, it's a psychological implosion. Imagine Cap, or a new Cap, facing off against Doom and hesitating just long enough because of memories. Imagine Peter seeing Stark's face and faltering mid-fight. Imagine Bruce trying to stay rational while his friend's image is being weaponized. Even Fury, the man who trusts no one, would second-guess himself when he hears that cadence, that charisma, that conviction. Doom is playing chess on a board where everyone else is just hoping their past still matters. And the irony is, it doesn't. Because Doom doesn't want to destroy the multiverse. He wants to rewrite it. And that's worse. That's final. That's the point of Battleworld. It's Doom's curated timeline. His perfect kingdom. Built not just from fractured universes, but from lies. He takes what you love, what you trust, and reskins it with his image. It's not that he's pretending to be Stark. It's that he's showing the multiverse how easy it is to replace someone if you control the narrative. It's villainy as propaganda, and nobody's ready for it. Now here's where it gets even more insidious, and why this is such a meta stroke of genius. Because Marvel knows you, the audience, will second-guess yourself too. They know the second you see RDJ, your heart skips. Your nostalgia kicks in. Your emotions scream, "He's back," even before your brain catches up. And they're using that. They're counting on that. Just like Doom is. The viewer becomes a participant in the lie. And by the time the twist is revealed, you've been played just like the characters. If you want to know how this all explodes, look no further than Secret Wars. Because when the Avengers finally realize that Doom isn't Stark, that he never was, they'll want to take him down. But they'll be too late. Because he's already built his empire. He's already rewritten what's real and what isn't. He's already stolen the hearts and minds of a broken multiverse. And the only way to defeat him is to tear down everything that reminds them of Tony Stark. The towers, the suits, the legacy. That's the heartbreak. To defeat Doom, they have to erase their own history. And if that sounds harsh, good. It's supposed to be. This isn't a feel-good saga. This is the MCU growing up, evolving, asking harder questions. What is identity? What is memory? Can a legacy survive if it's used as a lie? That's the kind of story Doom as Stark lets them tell. And it's bold, risky, but exactly the kind of storytelling punch Marvel needs to reignite the fandom and carry this saga across the finish line. Now let's not ignore the Kang-sized elephant in the room. You might ask, where does Kang fit in if Doom is the final villain? And here's the answer. He doesn't. Not in the way you think. Because Kang may be fractured, splintered, and multiversal, but Doom is singular, focused, consuming. Kang is a virus that spreads. Doom is a singularity that absorbs. And the closer we get to Secret Wars, the more obvious it becomes. Kang is the distraction. Doom is the payoff. Think about the timeline. The TVA is spiraling. Kang variants are destabilizing. He who remains is gone. The council is broken. And into that vacuum walks a familiar silhouette. Not with fear, but with confidence. Because Doom doesn't hide. He presents himself as the solution. The one who can end the Kang wars, seal the rifts, stabilize time. And when he says it with Tony Stark's face, everyone listens. That's what makes him scarier than Kang. He doesn't conquer with armies. He conquers with belief. Don't forget, Doom's ultimate enemy isn't the Avengers. It's Reed Richards. Always has been. And when you introduce the MCU's Reed, who knows Doom from before the armor, before the lies, that's when the real conflict explodes. Because Reed won't believe it's Tony. He'll see through the mask. He'll know who's behind the eyes. And he'll warn the others. But they won't listen. Because how do you tell someone not to trust the one person they wish was still alive? That's the kind of emotional tension that breaks teams apart. It's Civil War level conflict, but turned inward. Not about policy. About belief. Who do you believe? Who do you follow? Who do you see when you look at that man? And then there's Loki. Let's not forget that Loki is holding the threads of the multiverse in his hands. He understands time in a way nobody else does. And he's seen what happens when people worship false gods. Doom showing up wearing Tony's face will be the ultimate test for Loki's arc. Because he's not just fighting a villain, he's fighting the memory of a friend. Loki never cared much for Tony, but he respected him. And now, he's watching that face become the symbol of domination, of deception. That's the moment where Loki's redemption hits its final challenge. Will he burn the illusion down? Or will he play along? And then there's Strange, the man who's seen too much. Who broke the multiverse trying to save Peter Parker? Who watched Wanda tear reality apart and lived to tell the tale? He knows what chaos looks like. And when he sees Doom, masked or not, he'll feel it. But the challenge? He's been wrong before. His judgment is shaky. And Doom, using Stark's voice, will tempt even him. You want order? Doom will say. You want a universe where no child has to beg a wizard to erase time. He'll offer Strange everything he ever wanted. That's what Doom does. He doesn't just fight the heroes. He offers them what they secretly desire: safety, order, meaning. He's the devil in Tony Stark's clothing. And that's the kind of villain who doesn't just win battles. He wins hearts, until the lie is too deep to undo. And that's why Robert Downey Jr. isn't playing Doom. Not really. He's playing a man who stole everything Tony Stark was and turned it into a lie. That's more powerful than any new armor, more dangerous than any new weapon. It's Doom, with charisma, with trust, with legacy. It's Doom, with a face the universe already loves. So next time you hear someone say RDJ is playing Doctor Doom, just stop and think, what if he's not Doom at all? What if Doom is using him the way a con artist uses a disguise? What if the return of Tony Stark is the bait, and Doom is the hook? Marvel's not just building a movie here. They're building a message that even your favorite heroes can be used against you. That nostalgia can blind you. That legacy, if corrupted, can become the most dangerous thing in the universe. And when the mask finally falls, when the Avengers realize what's been happening all along, it's not just a reveal. It's a reckoning. It's the moment where the multiverse doesn't break. It shatters. And that's why you're about to witness the darkest, boldest, most emotionally devastating story Marvel has ever told. Not because Doom is evil, but because Doom, using Tony's face, makes you forget what evil even looks like. The Fantastic Four's mid-credit scene doesn't just tease the arrival of Doctor Doom, it hints at the resurrection of Marvel's most iconic actor, Robert Downey Jr., in a role so complex, so nuanced, and so devastating, it might completely rewire how we see him forever. This isn't some fun little cameo. This is a statement, a threat, a promise. The Fantastic Four movie itself, genuinely great. And I don't say that lightly. Marvel needed this to land, and they delivered. Gone is the clunky humor, the miscasting, the over-reliance on nostalgia. Instead, what we got was a team that felt authentic, smart, and emotionally grounded. Pedro Pascal brings the kind of weary intellect to Reed Richards that reminds us of Tony Stark in his darkest moments. Joseph Quinn surprises with a version of Johnny Storm that's not just hot-headed, but brilliant. Vanessa Kirby steals the show as Sue, and Ben Grimm is more than the guy in the orange rocks. He's the soul of the group. And the best part? They're all scientists. No one is comic relief. Every one of them feels like they belong in the story and in the universe. That's rare. But let's skip ahead. You're not here for a review. You're here because of that scene. The camera fades back into the Baxter building 4 years later. Franklin is 4 now. Innocent, curious, powerful beyond comprehension. And sitting across from him is Victor Von Doom, kneeling, unmasked, calm, not attacking, not gloating, just there, reaching out. It's a short scene, but I believe it reveals everything. I believe it cracks open the plot of Avengers Doomsday, and once you connect the dots, you'll see exactly what Marvel's building. Doom isn't there to threaten. He's there to persuade. Because he knows something nobody else does. Something about Franklin. Something about the universe. Something about what's coming next. And for once, he doesn't need to lie. He just needs to be patient. Now you're probably wondering, why Franklin? What makes this kid so special? Let me remind you what Galactus did. In the final act of Fantastic Four, Galactus showed up. Not as a storm cloud. Not as a voice in the sky. But as the real horrifying force from the comics. And what did he want? A trade. Earth. For the child. One child. One boy. Franklin. Let that sink in. Now Doom saw that. He studied that. He calculated the power it would take to make a being like Galactus reconsider, and then he started planning. Because Doom doesn't want to kill. Doom doesn't want to destroy. Doom wants to rule. And Franklin is the crown jewel. The key to everything. And that's why Doom appears calm, almost gentle in that mid-credit scene. He's not here to steal Franklin. He's here to convert him. Let's talk visuals for a second. In the main movie, the Baxter building is decorated in cool blues. Techno-elegant. Clinical. But in that mid-credit scene, it's orange. Warm. Inviting. Why? Because green, the color of Doom's cloak, pops against orange. It's complementary. It's a technique as old as cinema itself. Think Joker's green hair against his purple coat. Spider-Man's red against a blue skyline. It's not an accident. It's a signal. A signal that Doom is going to live in this space. That he will dominate it. Not with violence, but with presence. With ideology. With manipulation. And here's the twist. If Doom is allowed to walk freely through the Baxter building, that means the Fantastic Four trust him. Maybe not fully, but enough to let him in. Enough to listen. And that means Doom didn't break in. He was invited. That's huge. That changes everything. So what does he want? What's the goal? Simple. He wants Franklin to help him build Battleworld. If you've read Secret Wars 2015, you know what I'm talking about. Doom creates a patchwork planet made up of broken multiversal fragments. He rules it as a god. He holds it together using the power of Molecule Man. But in the MCU, we don't have Molecule Man. What we do have is Franklin Richards, a kid who can reshape reality, manipulate timelines, create life. Franklin is a literal god in the making. And Doom? Doom wants that power. Not to destroy, not to conquer, to rebuild on his terms. But here's the kicker. He's not dumb. He saw what happened when Galactus tried to take Franklin by force. It didn't work. Sue nearly broke the sky protecting her son. So Doom changes tactics. He plays the long game. He approaches with empathy, offers knowledge, warns them of the incursions, the multiversal collisions teased in Doctor Strange and the Marvels. He tells Reed and Sue, "Your universe is going to crash into another. I've seen it. I can help." And because he is a genius and he does know things Reed doesn't, they believe him. At least at first. This, I think, is the setup for Avengers Doomsday. The Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom working together temporarily to stop the end of their world. They travel to Earth 616, possibly using a modified version of the Excelsior spacecraft we saw earlier. And yes, In Thunderbolts, we saw a different version of that ship. But remember, this is Reed Richards. He can upgrade. He can adapt. That's not a continuity error. That's a feature. Now here's where it gets messy. Somewhere along the way, Doom reveals his real plan. Maybe it happens halfway through the movie. Maybe it's the climax. But when it happens, it'll hit like a freight train. Doom doesn't just want to survive the multiverse collapse, he wants to reshape it. He wants to build a new world, a better world. One ruled by intellect, logic, power, and by him. And Franklin? Franklin is the engine, the battery, the god. But Doom knows how fragile trust is. So he doesn't abduct Franklin. He doesn't need to. He guides him, twists him, makes him believe, makes him choose Doom over his own family. And when the moment comes, when Franklin finally sides with Victor, that's when everything burns. Reed Richards? Shackled, powerless, watching his son and wife stand beside Doom with no memory of who he is. And Doom, clad in white, sitting on a throne in the center of Battleworld, not as a tyrant, but as a god. Now let's talk about that face. Victor Von Doom is famously scarred. His vanity destroyed him. In the comics, one scratch was all it took for him to believe he was hideous. But in the MCU, this Doom took off his mask. In front of a child. That's not something comic Doom would ever do. So why does it matter? Because this might not be the same Doom. This might be a version that never got disfigured. Or more importantly, it might be Tony Stark. Or at least a man who looks like him. Because Anthony Russo confirmed that yes, Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doom. And that raises a million possibilities. What if Victor's identity, his appearance, his trauma are all part of a larger deception? In the Doom Quest storyline and the What If comics, we've seen versions where Doom and Stark share not just intelligence, but fate. In some universes, they're almost indistinguishable. What if the MCU leans into that? What if this Doom is obsessed with fixing the mistakes Tony made? With surpassing him? Or even replacing him? Not as Iron Man, but as something more. And let's not forget, Secret Wars is about memory, identity, broken timelines and shattered realities. The idea that the people we know may not even remember who they were. That's how Doom wins. Not through power, but through erasure. And that brings me back to that haunting image from the leaked concept art. Doom in white, Reed in chains, Sue and Franklin by Doom's side. And they don't remember. They don't know. They're just his. That's not just tragic. That's personal. That's how you elevate a story like this. You make it about more than just worlds colliding. You make it about family, about loss, about the cost of saving everything. And we haven't even talked about the X-Men yet. They're coming. We know they're coming. And they'll factor into Doomsday somehow. My guess? They're from a collapsing universe. Maybe even the 838 reality from Multiverse of Madness. Remember how Professor X died? Maybe they're Charles Xavier didn't. Maybe he saw the incursions coming, gathered the mutants, and sought refuge. Where? Battleworld. Or maybe against Battleworld. Doctor Strange is another wild card. He knows about incursions. He's seen the edge of the multiverse. In the comics, he becomes Doom's right-hand man during Secret Wars. Not because he agrees, but because he has no choice. Strange might end up being the last line of defense, or the first to fall. Either way, I'm certain he plays a pivotal role in Doomsday and the future of the multiverse. And that, my friends, is just the beginning. Strange knows Doom. Maybe not this specific version, but variants, patterns, intentions. He's seen what unchecked genius can become. And even though Strange himself has danced with darkness, Doom is different. Doom doesn't hesitate. He doesn't question. He believes. Completely. And that makes him the most dangerous being in the multiverse. Because when a man like Victor believes he's the answer, he stops listening to the question. Now, let's rewind just a bit, because there's something else about the mid-credit scene people are overlooking. When Franklin reaches out to Doom's face, it's not with fear. It's with recognition, familiarity. That look on Franklin's face wasn't just curiosity. It was comfort. And that changes the tone of everything. Doom didn't just walk in that day. He's been around, off-screen, building rapport, sowing seeds. And if Sue was gone, even briefly, perhaps during one of those secret space missions, it's possible Doom spent time with Franklin already. Secret visits, whispered stories, gentle guidance, slowly replacing Reed in the boy's subconscious. So when we see that moment in the penthouse, it's not the beginning. It's the reveal. The audience catches up to what Doom has already put in motion. But what about Sue? She's a powerhouse in this universe, visibly the strongest team member emotionally and physically. There's no version of this story where Sue would willingly give up Franklin or fall under Doom's spell, unless she didn't know she was doing it. And this, I believe, is where things get really tragic. Battleworld won't be built with fire and war. It'll be built with loss, with manipulation, with love. Imagine Doom telling Franklin, "Your mother's in danger. I can save her, but I need your help." That's not a lie. That's a weapon. Because children don't need to be forced. They need to believe they're helping. And once Franklin opens that door, once his power starts shaping reality, it may already be too late to pull him back. You can already imagine the lines. "I'm doing this for you, Mom. He said you'd be okay." And Sue, with no memory, standing beside Doom, a queen unaware she was ever anything else. That's how you write stakes. That's how you make a villain truly terrifying, not just because he's powerful, but because he's right there, inside your home, wearing a mask you invited him to put on. So where are the Avengers in all of this? They're fractured, still recovering from the fallout of Kang Dynasty, trying to understand what the multiverse even means now. New teams are forming. Old wounds are barely healing. There's no central leader anymore. No one voice guiding them forward. That vacuum is what allows Doom to rise. Because Reed and Sue aren't calling the Avengers yet. They're trying to solve things themselves. Like always. Because Reed always thinks he has the solution. But Doom doesn't just outthink Reed, he outplays him. Every move is a checkmate before the board is even set. And if you're wondering if that sounds too ambitious, remember, this is Marvel's reset moment. This is the big one. The spiritual successor to Infinity War. The answer to those who say the MCU lost its soul. This is the story that doesn't just juggle characters, it breaks them, rebuilds them, realigns the entire mythology. But it's also deeply personal. This is a story about a father losing his family, a mother losing herself, a child losing his innocence, and a man, Victor Von Doom, losing his humanity, even as he believes he's saving it. Now let's pull back again, just a little. Because there's a growing theory that this Doom, the one played by RDJ, isn't just another universe's Victor. He's a remnant, a fragment of Tony Stark, corrupted by time, by temptation, by exposure to things no human mind should process. Think about it, Tony sacrificed himself at the end of Endgame. He snapped Thanos out of existence, but his consciousness could have survived. Or maybe not survived. Maybe been reborn in another timeline. A timeline where the trauma of Ultron, Civil War, and his own God complex didn't lead to redemption, but to reconstruction. That's how you get Doom. Not a mask-wearing dictator, but a scientist who once believed he was a hero. A man who saw the multiverse fall apart and decided he had to fix it. Not by building suits, but by building realities. That adds layers to everything. Every interaction with Reed, every moment with Franklin, every line where he talks about mistakes or choices. Because he's not just talking about the collapse of universes. He's talking about himself. And here's the punch that will break fans. What if Franklin figures it out? What if, deep in Battleworld surrounded by lies, the boy begins to see pieces of the truth, echoes of Reed's voice, memories that don't belong? And what if, instead of fighting Doom with power, Franklin tries to redeem him? That could be the emotional core of Secret Wars. Not just smashing timelines together, but healing them. A child trying to save the man who replaced his father. That's poetry. That's weight. That's MCU at its most operatic. Now let's not forget another crucial layer, Latveria. We've only seen hints, but the absence of Latverian delegates at the future Foundation Assembly speaks volumes. This isn't just a hidden kingdom anymore. This is a place under siege. And Victor? He's not just the ruler. He's the last one who remembers what it used to be. Maybe he's even seen multiple Latverias fall in multiple universes. That fuels his obsession. That fuels Battleworld. He's not trying to conquer the multiverse. He's trying to preserve the best versions of it. And that's where the mutants could come in. Imagine this. Doom reaches out to the mutants from other realities, offers them sanctuary, a world where they'll never be hunted, never be feared, a home. That makes him look like a savior, a liberator, not a dictator. And in some cases, maybe he is. There's power in that contradiction, in the idea that Battleworld is both prison and paradise. And that brings us to one of the boldest theories yet. What if Doom isn't the villain of Secret Wars? What if he's the tragic hero? Think of it. The Avengers want to restore reality, reset things, bring back what was. But Doom? Doom offers a world where no one dies, where the best pieces of every broken universe are stitched together, where heroes who died can live again. Tony, Nat, Steve, Logan, Wanda, all preserved, protected within Doom's design. And if you were Franklin Richards, wouldn't that sound right? Wouldn't that feel like hope? The line between hero and villain has never been thinner. And that's why this story will hit harder than anything since Endgame. Because it's not about power. It's about belief. What happens when the smartest people in the multiverse disagree about what saving the world even means? And you know who gets caught in the middle? Peter Parker. That's right. We know Spider-Man, Brand New Day is coming. And there's no way that movie doesn't tie directly into this. Because if anyone understands memory loss, reality resets, and the cost of magic, it's Peter. He already gave up his identity to save the world once. And when he sees Battleworld, when he sees a place where Aunt May is alive, where MJ knows him, where Uncle Ben never died, you better believe that temptation is going to cut deep. Spider-Man could be the moral compass of this saga, the one who remembers what it means to let go. And then there's Doctor Strange, possibly the only man who sees Battleworld for what it is. Who knows Doom's past, knows the price of tampering with reality. Maybe he's the one who finally snaps Franklin out of it. Or maybe he joins Doom, as he does in the comics. Because even Steven has his limits, his regrets. Imagine the standoff. Strange, Peter, Sue, and Reed trying to break through to Franklin. Doom standing tall, white cloak flowing, speaking softly. They don't understand, Franklin. They never will. And Franklin? Caught. Between two worlds. Between two fathers. And just when it seems he might make the right choice, Doom shows him her. His mother. Alive. Safe. Happy. In a world he helped create. That's the moment that breaks him. And that's the moment when Reed Richards finally realizes this fight isn't going to be won with science, or power, or strategy. It's going to be won with faith. Faith in family. Faith in truth. Faith that, even when everything falls apart, the right thing is still worth doing. Now let's address one last theory, the one nobody wants to talk about. What if Franklin doesn't survive? What if the only way to collapse Battleworld and restore reality is for Franklin to give up his power completely, to erase himself from existence, to undo the engine Doom used to build his new world? It's the ultimate sacrifice. A child giving up everything to stop the man who made him feel like a god. And Reed, watching his son vanish to save the multiverse. That's the kind of ending that redefines the MCU. That shakes the foundation. That clears the board for a new era. One where the stakes matter again. Because if the most powerful being in Marvel gave everything up, not in battle, but in grace, how could anyone go back to punchlines and quips? That's what Avengers Doomsday could be. A soft reboot, yes, but also a funeral, a celebration, a rebirth. And Doom? Still out there. Still watching, still believing he was right. That's how you set up the next saga. That's how you give the MCU a second wind. So yeah, we finally have a Fantastic Four that works. But more importantly, we have a villain who might just break the MCU wide open. Not with violence, but with vision. And I'll be honest, I hope they do it. Because this isn't just the setup for Avengers Doomsday. This is the return of Marvel's ambition. This is hope, twisted into something dangerous. This is the end and the beginning. But hope, when placed in the wrong hands, can become something monstrous. And that's what Avengers Doomsday ultimately represents. It's a study in control of what happens when even the best of us, the smartest, the most capable, decide they alone are worthy of shaping what comes next. That's the philosophy Victor Von Doom will carry into the MCU, that the multiverse needs a curator, not a savior, a designer, not a defender. And to many that might sound compelling. Remember, Doom will not enter this saga as a cackling villain. He will be composed, articulate, visionary. And that's going to divide the fan base in universe too. Some will rally behind him, especially those from broken universes. Survivors of incursions. People whose homes were lost in the madness of multiversal collapse. Imagine characters like Deadpool or even Magneto looking at Doom and saying, he's not wrong. That's where things get slippery. When your enemy starts making sense. When the pain becomes persuasive. Now this brings us to the role of the TVA. They were a central force in Loki, and we now know they've been working behind the scenes, trying to control the timelines. The sacred timeline is no longer sacred. And if anyone would be monitoring the rise of Doom, it's them. But here's the problem. They've already been fractured. Renslayer is missing. Kang's variants are destabilizing everything. And Loki, the last man holding the system together, is now trapped in a state of eternal watch. So what happens? Doom seizes the gap. That's what makes this story so compelling. It's not just about the Fantastic Four, or even the Avengers. It's about how all the systems we've relied on, the TVA, the sorcerers, the technology, the governments, fail. And in that void, Doom becomes the answer. He becomes inevitable. And what about Kang? Isn't he the big bad of the multiverse saga? That's the beauty of this twist. Kang was the distraction. Kang's war across time, his variants, his dynasty, it's all noise. All leading to a final moment where we realize Kang was never the threat. He was the warning. A failed god, a broken tyrant. And as he falls, Doom rises. Now this is where Marvel can take the opportunity to finally introduce a clean narrative handoff. Kang's final act, whatever shape it takes in Doomsday, becomes the doorway through which Doom walks into power. And when the Avengers finally confront Doom, it won't feel like the end of a saga. It will feel like the start of something worse. Because Doom is not chaotic like Kang. He's not unpredictable like Thanos. He's methodical, patient. He builds his empire with consent, not coercion. He doesn't erase people, he offers them a place. A place on Battleworld. Now let's imagine the setting. Picture this. a fractured planet stitched together from shards of collapsed realities. New York floating beside Wakanda, parts of Asgard fused with Xandar. A city from Earth, 838, embedded into the ruins of nowhere, every fragment holding survivors, some aware of what happened, some living in blissful ignorance. This is Battleworld. Not just a battleground, a living museum of the multiverse. And Doom, its curator, its god. And where does that leave our heroes? Scattered, broken, some captured, some corrupted, others rallying a resistance, trying to find each other, trying to remember what reality even used to look like. And that's the story of Secret Wars, a war for memory, a war for identity, a war not just between heroes and villains, but between versions of heroes. Peter versus Peter, Steve versus Steve, Wanda versus Wanda. Lines blurred, morality bent, stakes raised beyond comprehension. Now imagine what it does to Reed Richards, the smartest man alive, the eternal fixer, the man who always has a solution. And yet, he couldn't stop Doom. He couldn't protect his family. He couldn't even warn the Avengers in time. That moment, when Reed sees Sue and Franklin standing beside Doom in full allegiance, will be the single most devastating moment in the entire MCU. No amount of logic will shield him. No invention will undo that. He is forced to confront the one failure he cannot fix, the loss of love. And maybe that's why he becomes the key. Because for all his intellect, Reed's greatest gift is his humanity. And when the battle reaches its climax and Franklin hesitates, torn between the power Doom gave him and the love he feels but no longer remembers, it won't be a weapon that sways him. It will be a story, a memory Reed holds on to, a bedtime story, a photo, a lullaby, a tiny human fragment that survived the collapse. And that will be the chisel that cracks the illusion. Because while Doom offers control, Reed offers connection. One is unshakable certainty. The other is vulnerable, chaotic love. And if Franklin chooses that, chooses truth over comfort, it will shatter Battleworld. That's your climax. Not a giant beam of energy, not a CGI explosion, but a child choosing love. And what does Doom do then? He doesn't scream. He doesn't rage. He just stops. Because deep down, he always knew this moment was coming. That his paradise was fragile. That the boy he tried to mold into a god would eventually become human again. And maybe, just maybe, that's the moment Doom vanishes. No death. No explosion. Just gone. Like a dream ending. Because for all his might, Doom is still a man. A man who tried to rebuild the multiverse in his image and lost. Now, let's look ahead. What does this set up? The possibilities are endless. For one, the multiverse is now permanently fractured. Not destroyed, but unlocked. We don't go back to one sacred timeline. Instead, we embrace the chaos. Heroes from different realities now coexist. Wolverine from Earth 10005 walks beside Deadpool from 616. Miles Morales finds himself in the same universe as Tom Holland's Peter. Characters long dead in one timeline are now alive in another. That opens the door to stories unlike anything we've seen. Not reboots, not retcons, expansions. And more importantly, the audience gets to choose. We're no longer bound by continuity. We're freed by possibility. This also sets the stage for a new kind of Avengers team. One that isn't defined by location, but by legacy. A multiversal coalition. Carol Danvers, Shuri, Shang-Chi. Kate Bishop, X-23, Strange. America Chavez. And maybe even an older Franklin Richards, back from wherever he disappeared to after Battleworld collapsed, shaped by what he saw. A new team, a new threat, a new saga. And who might that next threat be? It doesn't have to be another villain. What if the next saga is about repairing the multiverse? about finding lost fragments and restoring balance, about seeking out universes where threats are emerging before they spread. Think cosmic peacekeepers, reality healers, architects of existence. And at the edge of it all, Victor Von Doom, still watching, still waiting, still believing it should have worked. That's how you plant seeds. That's how you make a character like Doom timeless. Not by killing him, but by letting him linger. Because here's the thing, Doom is not Thanos. He's not Kang. He's not even Magneto. Doom is inevitability. Not the kind that snaps fingers, but the kind that whispers, I can do it better. And when that voice returns years from now, it'll feel like destiny. So if you walked out of Fantastic Four wondering what that short, strange, mid-credit scene meant, wonder no more. It meant everything. It meant the MCU is back. It meant the game is changing. It meant that Robert Downey Jr. didn't come back just for nostalgia. He came back to play the most dangerous character in the Marvel Universe. A man not driven by greed or conquest, but by purpose. Victor Von Doom. And the moment he knelt before Franklin Richards, mask in hand, hand on his shoulder, he wasn't just entering the room. He was rewriting it. Because this isn't just the Fantastic Four's story. This is the dawn of Doomsday. And when the dust settles, when Battleworld crumbles and the timelines scatter, one truth will remain. Doom didn't lose. He taught them. He made them better. He made them ready. We're headed toward a three-way existential war. Doom versus Kang versus Loki. A battle for survival. A battle for timelines. But most importantly, a battle for free will. Here's the thing. Doom doesn't play the same game everyone else does. Kang wants control. Loki wants freedom. But Doom wants something permanent. A world that never breaks again. And to do that, he's not afraid to watch everything fall apart first. While Marvel fans have been focused on Kang's variants and time branches, Doom's been operating in the shadows. Planning, building, waiting. And now, everything's aligning. But before we break down Doom's plan, we need to talk about the massive narrative problem Marvel has created. Let's rewind to where this all started. Doctor Strange, in the Multiverse of Madness, introduced us to a concept that immediately raised the stakes. Incursion. For longtime Marvel comic fans, this word wasn't new. In New Avengers, time runs out, and Jonathan Hickman's legendary Secret Wars run, incursion was the force that slowly erased reality. Universes collapsing into each other. Worlds literally stacked on top of one another, and if they touched, boom, both destroyed. The only options were destroy one to save the other, or let both die. That's massive, right? In the MCU, it started promising. Earth 838's Reed Richards explains it cleanly. When Doctor Strange travels to another universe, he breaks down the barriers. The multiverse becomes unstable. Boundaries crack. And when that happens enough, a full incursion begins. That's what was supposed to be coming. The slow breakdown of the walls between worlds. In the Marvels, the post-credit scene took it further. Monica Rambeau ends up in a world where the X-Men exist. Another breach. Another sign that reality is on the verge of collapsing. The setup was there. But then, silence. Nothing about incursion was mentioned in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Nothing about incursions in Loki Season 2. And now, with Fantastic Four First Steps, which we thought would be the story to bring incursion front and center, we got absolutely nothing. No mid-credit tease. No warning signs. No mention of the multiverse collapsing. Instead, we find out the movie takes place on an alternate Earth, Earth 828. And that's it. Which is wild. Because this was the perfect opportunity to explain how Earth 828's Fantastic Four eventually connect with Earth 616. Maybe an incursion is how they meet. Maybe the collapsing multiverse is what brings the heroes together. But nope. So it really looks like Marvel is scrapping the entire incursion arc. That's a huge shift. And what we're getting instead? A new kind of multiverse threat. One that's less about physics and more about philosophy. The collapse of the multiverse, not because of broken boundaries, but because of free will. That's the pivot. And believe it or not, it all goes back to Loki. When Loki Season 1 dropped, it didn't feel like a central pillar of the multiverse saga. But now, it's the foundation. The entire concept of free will was introduced in those first few episodes. The TVA was pruning timelines, removing anyone who stepped outside the sacred timeline. Everything had to be exactly as He Who Remains wanted. No choices, no deviations, just one path forward. The moment someone did something they weren't supposed to, bam, they were erased. That's what happened to Sylvie. That's what happened to so many variants. And that's what launched Loki's entire journey. Sylvie didn't just want revenge, she wanted freedom. When she killed He Who Remains at the end of Season 1, she believed she was freeing the timeline. But that act shattered the stability that He Who Remains had built. All those branching realities started to spin out of control, which led to Loki Season 2. Now we're dealing with the temporal loom. A structure built to manage one sacred timeline, but now it's being overloaded by infinite branching ones. Loki gets time-slipping powers, jumps across realities, and sees firsthand what's happening. The multiverse is literally cracking under the weight of free will. Everyone wants to choose their own path, but the machine built to handle one path can't handle thousands. And again, Loki faces a choice. He can go back to a sacred timeline, prune everything, remove free will, or he can let the timelines grow, even if it means everything might collapse. And he chooses free will. He becomes the god of stories. He takes the shattered branches and weaves them into a tree. But here's the problem. It's a temporary fix. The TVA is barely holding things together. Kang variants are still out there. Multiversal war is still looming. Free will has been restored, but the cost of that freedom? Chaos. This is where Doom comes in, and his logic is terrifying. While the TVA is scrambling to patch up holes and prune Kang variants, Doom is watching. And he's not interested in patchwork. He wants to accelerate the collapse. Because to Doom, this isn't a disaster, it's an opportunity. In Fantastic Four First Steps, we get a chilling mid-credit scene where Doom meets Franklin Richards. This is the moment everything clicks. Franklin is a nexus of cosmic potential. He has the power cosmic. And he's the son of Reed Richards. Which matters, because Kang, aka Nathaniel Richards, is a descendant of Reed. That means Franklin is deeply tied to Kang's very existence. So Doom sees a path. If he captures Franklin across the multiverse, multiple versions of him, he can absorb enough cosmic power to change the entire course of Kang's lineage. And with the power cosmic absorbed from multiple Franklins, Doom isn't just powerful, he's godlike. With that power, he doesn't want to stop the collapse. He wants to complete it. He wants to destroy the multiverse entirely. Because in that destruction, Doom sees a way to create something new, something perfect, something he controls. He travels across realities, meets Doctor Strange. Not our Earth, 616 Strange, but a Strange who's dived so deep into the Darkhold that his moral compass is barely hanging on. Together, they approach Loki. Because Loki, as the god of stories, holds the key to the new timeline structure. And Doom lays it all out. Let the multiverse burn. Let the Kangs kill each other. Let the unstable branches collapse. From the ashes, they'll build a new world. A single world. One with free will, but controlled free will. A world where people believe they have choice, but where Doom makes sure those choices never lead to collapse again. This is where it gets philosophical. Doom isn't like He Who Remains. That guy erased all deviation. He forced a sacred timeline. Doom is different. He believes in choice, but only the kind of choice that doesn't threaten the system. He believes in order, not freedom. And to do that, he must burn everything down first. That world he's building? It's called Battleworld. In the comics, Battleworld was created from the shattered remains of dying universes. Pieces of realities stitched together under Doom's control. And that's what Marvel is hinting at now. The multiverse collapses. Kangs destroy each other. The TVA fails. Doom steps in and uses Franklin's power, Strange's knowledge, and Loki's tree of timelines to create Battleworld. No more incursions. No more Kang variants. No more TVA. Just one unified domain under Doom's rule. And here's the terrifying part. To the average person, it might feel like paradise. No chaos. No threat of multiversal war. Just peace. But it's peace under a lie. Because even if Doom allows free will, he controls the limits of that freedom. You can choose your path, but only within the narrow world he designed. Step too far out of line and you're erased, which is exactly what he accuses He Who Remains of doing. The irony is brutal. Doom hates the TV. But in trying to create his own perfect system, he's becoming the very thing he despised. And this is where the real conflict ignites. Because the Avengers, especially Reed Richards, won't stand for it. Doom didn't just absorb power, he stole Franklin, kidnapped the child of two of Earth's greatest heroes. Reed and Sue aren't just going to sit back and let that happen. They're going to fight. And they won't be alone. Thor, Sam Wilson, Captain Marvel, Monica, Wong, America Chavez. They'll all rise, not just to stop Doom, but to restore the multiverse, to bring back true free will, not the illusion of it. But here's the tragic twist. Loki might not be on their side, because Loki knows what happened when free will was unleashed. He saw the timelines spin out of control. He knows what it cost. And he might believe Doom is right, that some kind of order is necessary. That Battleworld, as fake as it is, might be better than total destruction. Same with Doctor Strange. In the comics, Strange stood by Doom's side during Secret Wars. Not because he believed in Doom, but because he believed someone had to survive. Someone had to rebuild. So the question becomes, which side will they choose? Doom versus Kang versus Loki. But it's not just a battle of powers. It's not even about timelines anymore. It's a war of ideologies, total control, complete freedom, or something in between. And in the middle of all this, the Avengers, trying to do what they always do, save everyone, even if it means tearing down everything that was built. Marvel's multiverse saga is no longer about incursions. It's about the consequences of choice. It's about what happens when everyone wants their own story, but the universe can't handle that many stories at once. And Doom? Doom doesn't want stories. He wants a single narrative, one that he controls from start to finish. This is what sets up Avengers Doomsday. Not just a crossover, not just a war, a clash of cosmic ideologies. And if Marvel pulls this off, it might be bigger than Endgame. Because this time, it's not just about saving one universe, it's about deciding what kind of reality we deserve to live in. Now here's where things start getting uncomfortable in the best way. Because if Doom is the one who ends up building Battleworld, then that means everything leading up to Secret Wars isn't about preventing catastrophe anymore. It's about who gets to shape what comes after the catastrophe. And that's a massive shift in the way Marvel tells stories. Up until now, every major event in the MCU has been about stopping something bad from happening. Thanos, Ultron, Hydra, the Sokovia Accords. But what we're seeing now, it's different. Marvel is essentially saying, what happens when the bad thing already happened? What do we build in its place? And Doom's answer is chillingly simple. He wants to build a world where choice doesn't lead to destruction, where outcomes are predictable and pain is minimized. But to do that, he'll manipulate the very idea of freedom. That's the paradox. Doom isn't trying to eliminate free will, he's trying to rewrite it into something he can regulate. Which sounds insane until you realize that in the MCU, free will itself might be the root cause of the multiverse's collapse. Think about it. Every time someone makes a unique choice, a true act of independence, they create a branch. Multiply that by billions, and the multiverse expands faster than it can sustain. What Loki saw in Season 2 was that even a noble choice, choosing to preserve freedom, can have consequences. The temporal loom was never built to handle an infinite array of outcomes. It was designed for one timeline, one path. So when everyone starts choosing their own paths, the system overloads. And even though Loki sacrifices everything to hold it all together, the cracks are still showing. And that's what Doom is counting on. He doesn't have to win a war. He just has to wait for everything to fall apart on its own. But don't think for a second that Kang is out of this. Doom might be trying to steal Kang's throne, but Kang, especially the Council of Kangs, isn't going quietly. If Doom's plan is to collapse the multiverse and build Battleworld, Kang's plan is to conquer the multiverse before it collapses. That's the key difference. Kang believes in control through domination. He wants to own every timeline, every variant, every possibility. The Council exists because Kang couldn't stop himself. Every Kang wanted to be the prime Kang. So they made a truce, a fragile one. But now, with the TVA pruning Kang variants and the multiverse in chaos, that truce is shattered. So what's Kang's counterplay? Well, in Quantumania, we saw one version of Kang already try to escape the quantum realm to rebuild the multiverse in his image. He failed, but others won't. The Council of Kangs will now launch a multiversal invasion, trying to preserve their own dominion. Not because they care about stability, but because they want to decide who gets to rule what's left. In many ways, Kang is the pure embodiment of control without morality. He doesn't care about what kind of world gets rebuilt, he just wants to be the one on top when it happens. And ironically, that makes Kang the perfect enemy for Doom. Because while Kang rules for the sake of power, Doom wants to rule for the sake of order. He believes there's a deeper purpose behind his actions. He sees himself as the only one capable of building something that won't collapse again. So when these two collide, when the multiverse is burning and only one world remains, what we'll see isn't just a fight between villains. It's a fight between ideologies. Chaos versus control. Conquest versus curation. And then there's Loki. Now this is where things get seriously complicated. Because Loki, our Loki, the one we followed from 2012 to now, isn't just another player in this war. He's become something far more important. He's no longer the god of mischief. He's the god of stories. That means he holds the threads of the multiverse itself. Every branching path, every possible timeline, they're all part of the tree he maintains. That makes him more than just a character. It makes him the backbone of reality. And that kind of power comes with impossible choices. Loki is torn between what he wants and what he knows must be done. On one hand, he fought for free will. He sacrificed everything to let people choose their paths. But on the other hand, he sees the cost of that freedom. He knows that every choice creates instability. Every deviation puts more pressure on the temporal loom, pressure it was never designed to withstand. And when Doom comes to him with a proposal not to erase free will, but to reshape it, Loki has to consider it. Because if the only alternative is watching the multiverse implode, maybe some compromise is worth it. And this is what makes Loki the wild card. Unlike Kang and Doom, Loki isn't trying to rule. He's trying to protect. Not just people, but stories, narratives, identity. He understands better than anyone that people are defined by their choices, by the paths they take. So even if those paths lead to destruction, taking away choice is a betrayal of everything he's become. That's what makes his potential alliance with Doom so tragic. He doesn't agree with Doom, but he might believe Doom is the only one with a plan. Because here's the thing, the TVA has no plan. The TVA is barely holding the walls together. They're reacting, not acting. They're pruning Kang variants, yes, but they don't know what to do next. Mobius is lost, Sylvia's disillusioned, and OB can't fix a system that's already broken. So Loki becomes the TVA's final hope. But even he knows that hope isn't enough. Meanwhile, Doctor Strange might be the only one with enough awareness to see all sides of the conflict. After the events of Multiverse of Madness, Strange knows what unchecked power looks like. He's seen what happens when you tamper with the Darkhold. But more importantly, he understands that the multiverse is a layered, fragile ecosystem. One ripple becomes a tidal wave. One spell can break the fabric of reality. So when Doom offers a chance to rebuild that fabric, to rethread the loom in a way, Strange is tempted. Not because he trusts Doom, but because he fears the alternative even more. And if we follow the comic trajectory, Strange does side with Doom. Not forever, but long enough to help him build Battleworld. Because he believes someone needs to survive. Someone needs to record what was lost. And when the time comes, someone will need to undo what Doom has built. Which brings us to the true emotional core of this upcoming saga, the Resistance. The Avengers, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Peter Parker, Sam Wilson, Shuri, Kate Bishop. All these characters will look around and see a broken multiverse, a Battleworld patched together from destroyed timelines. And they'll have to ask themselves, is this really the future we want? Because in Battleworld, everything might look fine on the surface. But underneath, people know something's wrong. They know their choices don't matter, that their stories have been rewritten, that memories have been altered, that their lives aren't truly theirs. And that spark of rebellion, that refusal to accept a curated life is what ignites the final battle. That's when the Avengers rise. They're not just fighting Doom. They're fighting the idea that the ends justify the means. That a stable world built on lies is better than a chaotic world built on truth. That's the conflict. That's what separates heroes from gods. Doom believes he's saving reality. The Avengers believe that reality is only worth saving if people get to shape it themselves. And this is where Secret Wars delivers its emotional punch. Because when the Avengers confront Doom, they're not just trying to destroy Battleworld. They're trying to resurrect everything that was lost. Every timeline, every story, every possibility. They want the multiverse back. But they want it to be real this time, not manufactured, not filtered, not controlled. And who leads that charge? Reed Richards. Because Doom didn't just steal Franklin's power, he stole his future. Reed's fight isn't just cosmic. It's personal. He's not trying to win a war. He's trying to get his son back. And that's what gives him the strength to do what Doom never could. Let go. Let people make their own choices. Let the multiverse live, even if it means facing chaos again. That's the turning point. The battle won't be won by power. It won't be won by technology or spells or timeline manipulation. It will be won by sacrifice, by the willingness to risk everything for the freedom of others. And that's what separates Doom from the Avengers. Doom believes people can't be trusted. The Avengers believe people deserve to try. So when the dust settles, when Battleworld crumbles and the multiverse begins to reform, it won't be because someone rewrote the rules. It'll be because someone chose not to. That's the future Marvel is setting up. Not a universe built by gods, but one rebuilt by heroes. And here's the kicker. Even after the multiverse is saved, even after Battleworld is gone, the question of free will won't go away. Because now everyone knows what it costs. Everyone knows what it means to have choice and what it means to lose it. That awareness becomes part of the DNA of the MCU moving forward. Characters won't just fight villains anymore. They'll fight systems, beliefs, philosophies. And that's where Marvel can evolve beyond just superhero movies, into something bigger, something more human. Because in the end, this isn't just about Doom or Kang or Loki. It's about us, about the stories we tell, the choices we make, and what it means to be free. So what do you think? Is Marvel really ditching the incursion path? Is Doom's vision of Battleworld more terrifying than Kang's multiversal empire? Would you sacrifice free will to save the multiverse? Or do you believe, like the Avengers, that even in chaos, people deserve the right to choose? Because the next phase of Marvel isn't just about epic battles and variant cameos. It's about answering a question we've been asking for centuries. Are we truly free? And if we are, what will we do with that freedom? That question, what do we do with our freedom, isn't just the central theme of the Multiverse saga. It's the one thing every single Marvel character will eventually have to face, especially as the multiverse is reshaped, rewritten, and redefined. And that's why this entire saga is shaping up to be more than just another crossover event. It's not just about throwing dozens of characters into one explosive movie. It's about how they each confront the consequences of power, destiny, and the paths they didn't choose. Let's zoom back out and take one last clear-eyed look at the battlefield ahead. On one side, we have Kang, a fractured identity, not a single villain, but a storm of possibilities. Kang represents what happens when someone refuses to let go of control. Each variant is a reaction to chaos, a version of himself that believes he alone has the right to reshape time. But because they all think that, the Council of Kangs is doomed to fail. It's ironic. Kang tries to unify time, but can't even unify himself. He's the villain of infinite ambition, endlessly caught in a feedback loop of domination. On another side, we have Doom, a singular vision, one man, one ego, one unwavering belief that the multiverse needs a savior, and that savior must be him. But Doom doesn't want power for its own sake. He wants power because he thinks he's the only one capable of using it correctly. He believes that his pain, his loss, his journey has forged him into something better than humanity. And so he gives himself the right to dictate reality, not because he hates people, but because he doesn't trust them. Doom sees freedom as a luxury most can't handle. And so he rewrites freedom into something manageable, something calculated. And finally, we have Loki, a being who started as a trickster and evolved into a guardian. He represents the imperfect, flawed potential of every being who ever wanted more than what they were told they could have. His entire life has been about breaking destiny, about proving he wasn't just the villain in someone else's story. And now, as the god of stories, Loki understands better than anyone what it means to have a choice and what it means to take it away. His journey is the most relatable, the most grounded, because it's not about ruling or conquering. It's about becoming. And in that process, he carries the weight of everyone else's stories. That trio, Kang, Doom, Loki, doesn't just set the stage for Avengers Secret Wars. It creates the most ideologically driven climax Marvel has ever attempted. And what makes it so compelling is that no one is entirely right or wrong. Kang is a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition. Doom is the terrifying embodiment of what happens when intellect becomes tyranny. And Loki is the paradox, the god who finally learns humility and earns responsibility. So how do the heroes fit into this? They're not just reacting to the battle. They're redefining what heroism even means in this new world. Because when universes are being erased, when timelines are snapping out of existence, when memories are rewritten, being a hero isn't just about saving people from explosions or portals. It's about choosing to fight for truth when truth itself is being rewritten. It's about saying, even if the world burns down, I'll help rebuild it the right way. Take Peter Parker, a character who literally had his identity erased to protect the multiverse. A hero who chose to be forgotten by everyone he loved so others could be safe. When Peter shows up in this war, whether it's Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or all three, his role won't just be emotional. It'll be symbolic. Because Peter is the embodiment of responsibility, of sacrifice, of the idea that doing the right thing often means doing the hardest thing. Or look at Reed Richards, a scientist who's always tried to outthink danger, who's always believed that knowledge can solve everything. But now he's confronting the most painful truth of all, that sometimes intellect isn't enough, that sometimes you have to choose between what's smart and what's right. Reed's arc will be deeply emotional. His son was taken, his legacy manipulated. And now he has to go up against Doom, someone who, in the comics, was once his friend and always his greatest rival. Their confrontation won't be about science. It'll be about ideals, about the kind of world each of them believes should exist. Then there's Wanda, Scarlet Witch, a character who already rewrote reality once out of grief. She's been on both sides, hero and villain, protector and destroyer. If she returns, and let's be real, Marvel's not done with her, she could be the key to tilting the balance. Because Wanda understands what it means to lose control, what it means to reshape reality for personal reasons. And if she joins this fight, she won't just be another powerhouse. She'll be a mirror to Doom himself, a reminder of what happens when emotion overrides ethics. And don't forget characters like America Chavez, a multiverse traveler whose powers make her both a target and a solution. Or Monica Rambeau, now stranded in a different universe entirely. Or Shuri, carrying the legacy of Wakanda into a conflict that spans every reality. These characters bring fresh perspectives. They don't come from the original Avengers mold. They represent the future, the next generation of heroes who must choose not just how to fight, but why to fight. Because this isn't Endgame 2. This isn't about time heists or infinity stones. This is about belief, philosophy, the fundamental rules of existence. Marvel is asking its characters and its audience to consider something deeper. If you had the power to rebuild everything, what kind of world would you create? Would you create one like Kang's, where everything is controlled because fear drives you? Would you build one like Doom's, where everything is orderly because you think you know best? Or would you risk chaos to let people decide for themselves? That's the question Secret Wars must answer. And here's where it all comes together. Battleworld doesn't last. We know that. It's inherently unstable, built on destruction, held together by fear and force. Eventually, heroes find a way to tear it down. Maybe it's Reed who reclaims his son and breaks Doom's power. Maybe it's Loki who finally lets go and gives the multiverse back to its people. Maybe it's a group effort, with Wanda, Strange, and Chavez stitching the multiverse back together one thread at a time. But the aftermath is just as important. What happens after Secret Wars? Does the multiverse remain open? Do we return to a single timeline? Does the TVA evolve into something better? Something that watches but never interferes? Or do we see a new generation of watchers like Uatu rise to keep the balance? Marvel has the chance to do something no cinematic universe has done before. Reboot without starting over. Instead of erasing everything, they can integrate everything. The X-Men can be part of the MCU now because their universe collided with ours. Deadpool can exist because his timeline survived Battleworld. Variants can be real people, not just alternate versions. And we, the audience, get to experience a universe where history is preserved and possibility is infinite. And this is why Doom, Kang, and Loki matter so much. because they're not just the final bosses of the saga. They're the last gatekeepers of reality. Kang represents the past, a tyrant trying to preserve his legacy. Doom represents the future, a would-be god trying to perfect it. And Loki represents the present, the imperfect human struggle to do the right thing when everything is on the line. In the end, Loki might be the one who sacrifices again, who says, let them choose. And by doing that, he fulfills the arc that began in Loki Season 1. He becomes the guardian of freedom, not by controlling stories, but by letting them unfold. That would be a poetic, powerful end. And it would open the door for something even bigger. The true integration of Marvel's cosmic, mystical, and multiversal threads. Because when this saga ends, the MCU won't be a single line anymore. It'll be a web, a living, breathing, ever-changing tree of stories. Some will be lighthearted, others dark. Some tragic, others victorious. But all of them will matter.